everybody hear me? You can, Peter?
I can hear you.
Commissioner?
I can hear
Are
you.
you all ready for this, Commissioner?
I'm always ready for this.
You are. You're always 15 minutes before anybody else, I'll tell you. So why don't we start? And it's a pleasure seeing everybody here at the Parks Department and all of you folks. And I just want to say I'm sure many of us, the council and the administration, and particularly the people in the neighborhoods, have known you've weathered a very difficult time. You've probably been the most affected department as far as the pandemic goes, but you have muscled your way through it under the leadership of the people on this particular in this on this particular call. So why don't we start right off and with it and introduce yourself, Commissioner. Let's go.
All right, I am Commissioner Julie LaFave, Parks, Recreation, and Youth Programs Department. On this are a number of the staff here who represent many of the bureaus within our department. So they come every year. They have a very good handle as well on our budget. And if you guys have specific questions, they are the pros. They know the ins and outs of their department, what they're planning, where they've been, what the trends are. So I'm always happy to let them speak when I don't feel confident enough in what they know well or what they know best. This budget, I'm happy to say, restores us back to pre-pandemic levels, which now that we're starting to open back up, grass never stopped growing, trees never stopped having branches that need to be pruned, but we have buildings now that need to be opened again. We have services that we need to provide again. So we're slowly getting there. So this is a pre-pandemic level budget which we're excited about, which we intend to take full advantage of to serve the public. What it also shows is an investment in a few of our bureaus, both with equipment to make ourselves more efficient, specifically within the Aquatics Bureau, Grounds Bureau, and Forestry. We are investing in equipment upgrades so that we can either maintain our facilities such as our pools at a higher level with less man hours. Same can be said within the Grounds Bureau, investing in equipment so that we have less people having to do it manual labor. We also are investing within our special events, which impacts all of our senior centers, community centers, and youth centers. Equipment upgrades there so that we can offer more services, not only to the public as a whole, but within our own facilities to a private audience. So we also have some new positions, which we're excited to bring on, positions that are long overdue. We are bringing on a landscape architect, which will help our planning division. Right now, we currently only have an architect. Parks Department as a whole has a high number of capital dollars, and it's a gigantic workload for one person. And our one person's on this call, and he does a great job, but it's just simply too much. So we're excited to bring in a landscape architect for that. We're also bringing in a forestry technician to help with our forestry department. That's long overdue. The amount of grant dollars that we get in the forestry department has skyrocketed over the last few years. So having an extra body in there will help us out. We're also adding a cashier, which is a public facing. When we open back up to the public here in hopefully 2 weeks or so, we need somebody who can answer all the questions that everybody has had for the last year. And those are the biggest changes that we have that are reflected in this budget and that we're looking forward to. So I welcome any questions.
Well, Commissioner, hold on. I would like to, and I couldn't do this in the beginning because I forgot. I'd like to introduce the two city councilors who were on. I noticed on it, Councilor Driscoll and Councilor Allen, and I don't see any other city councilors. I could be wrong. President Hudson said she couldn't make it. And
Councilor Majuk is here.
Oh, good. I see Councilor Majuk. I didn't see him. Good. Well, welcome everybody. Why don't you go line by line on this, if you can, quickly through, the different bureaus, if you could, Commissioner. And then
Sure.
If there's any questions, my fellow councilors and myself can chime in here.
Okay, so we have technically 4 bureaus as far as budget is concerned with Parks and Recreation. The first one is admin. Admin is really just myself and people who handle our finances, the secretary, and that's actually where our planning department comes out of. Again, the major change there is we are adding a landscape architect. Actually, budgetary wise, it's not a it's not a new change. It really was just a changeover of the title of the position that Glenn Lewis vacated. So really, there's no money being added here. It's just we changed the title so that we can hire somebody with a very specific skill set that Glenn had, but it just wasn't with his title. He worked without a title that wasn't appropriate. That is the major
No,
change.
Commissioner, can I interrupt for 1 second? You don't
Anytime
have
you
a
want.
deputy. You don't have a deputy commissioner, correct?
It's still in the budget right now. So
It's still in the budget, but you don't have one serving in as a deputy commissioner. So you're probably the only commissioner in the city that doesn't have a deputy, right?
I don't actually know. Maybe, yes. I
Yes,
don't know the status. Honestly, I don't. Yes, that might be
okay.
true.
Okay. Keep on going there, Commissioner. You're doing fine.
Okay, so that's the admin line. There's not a lot to change within the admin line. The grounds maintenance, which also includes forestry. Again, we added a forestry technician person there. We actually funded again. We're not creating a new position. It just was unfunded for a long time. A greenhouse crew leader. Our greenhouse, we're happy to say, it is operating more efficiently. So we're bringing back a crew leader dedicated to that so that we can have a better grasp of the 100-ish landscaped areas within the city. The forestry technician position, oh, go ahead.
Commissioner, on that, is there capital money set aside for improvements to the greenhouse? What kind of shape is the greenhouse? I haven't been there in years, so.
So the greenhouse over the last few years, every single year has been upgraded with our skilled trades team. I think specifically the roofing, I don't know if it's plexiglass, but whatever the greenhouse type roofing is. Pete, I don't know if I saw you shake your head, so I don't know if you have anything to add there. But we have been we make updates on it annually.
And we still contract with other outfits as far as to help us with the flowers in the downtown parks, or do we do everything in-house? We don't do everything in-house, right, Peter?
The downtown committee handles much of downtown, and we're starting to help supplement some of that as well.
Okay, so you're helping them. What about the medians and all that in the city?
Those are all us.
Okay.
All within the greenhouse, yes.
And you contract out for the flowers or anything like that? I mean, plants or anything like that? Do them all in-house?
No, we're doing them all in-house now. Any of the
Excellent.
meetings that don't have any flowers, that's contracted out to be mowed.
Okay. Thank you.
We do. With that said, though, we do have neighborhood groups though who do the planting themselves, and we provide the flowers. But those are in public.
Who doesn't reach out to all the neighborhood groups in your department, particularly? You just all share the responsibility?
I would say it kind of goes the other way. Well, we reach out to them if we have something specific, but usually they reach out to us when they have a request for a service or something.
Okay. Go on, Commissioner.
Okay. We are trying to put, and I'm going to have Pete talk a little bit about this, but we're trying to invest more in proactive instead of reactive, meaning, for instance, our playgrounds. In the past, we kind of would put, it's called engineered wood fiber, but basically wood chips in playgrounds based on complaints or based on what we saw. But now we're trying to have a regular maintenance so that we have a plan every single year, just knowing that they need to be maintained every single year. We are requesting some equipment. Pete, can you list some of the equipment upgrades that we're trying to purchase?
Yeah, we're looking to upgrade some of the golf course mowing equipment. And what we're trying to do is, instead of buying new, because the equipment's only used 6 months out of the year, we're looking to buy used. And the used market for golf course equipment, much of it comes from the higher end golf courses around the country, the Northeast, the Southeast. So buying it's meticulously maintained. Calling around to local, like Onondaga Country Club, probably the most prestigious golf course in the area, they don't buy new equipment. They buy all used equipment from, like places like Sawgrass and stuff like that. So we're trying to make an investment in the golf courses, but do it smart. So $75,000 could buy one piece of equipment. Now, if we buy used, we could buy 3 pieces of equipment that we really need and stretch the money further.
Excellent. To my fellow counselors, I went over to the Parks Department and had a rundown of the new maintenance plan from Pete and the Commissioner. I would encourage anybody, if you get a chance to get over there, they can give you how their plans for the future as far as maintenance. I was very impressed by it too. So go on, Commissioner.
I forgot to list one very important new position that we are adding. The title, we're still working on it, but it's likely going to be Trails Coordinator. This is one that the city has wanted for a few years now with the addition of the Creek Walk, but also the Empire State Trail. This is a position that will fall under Parks and Recreation, under the supervision of grounds, but be dedicated to what we're calling public trails. So not just Creek Walk dedicated, but again, we have the Empire State Trail and anything like that. So it will be a position dedicated to the daily maintenance, communicating with engineering, communicating with the forestry department, communicating with City Hall, communicating with the public. But so we're really excited to have this position because right now we don't have the resources for somebody to go up and down the 5-mile stretch of the Creek Walk, whereas in this person, in addition to helping with our other operations, this will be their sole purpose.
So will it be an administrative / parks position? I mean, will they do actual physical upkeep of the Creek Walk?
They will. They
Okay.
will. Yes, they will be a crew. We're working on the exact title and the specs within civil service, but this will be working physically going up and down these public trails and communicating when things need to get done or picking up the trash on a daily basis. We've been communicating with Info Services, who has been providing part-time maintenance on this as well as the grounds. So we feel we have a really good baseline for this person so that there's no space in the transition, so that we can, once this person is hired, we can get running and it'll just be maintained at an even higher level.
Okay. Any questions for my fellow counselors? Hearing none, why don't you keep on going there?
I'm gonna ask Steve Harris to speak specifically about the forestry
I got
technician.
One. I got one.
Okay, yes, go
I
ahead.
got one, Commissioner.
Counselor Majok?
Yeah, yes, sir. May I?
Yes, absolutely, Counselor.
So I got two questions. One is just a clarification, Commissioner. Where do park centers directors fall under?
That's in our recreation budget, which I have not gotten to yet.
Okay. I'll wait for that then.
Okay.
Trail coordinator that you were talking about.
You'll see that noted as Creek Walk maintenance supervisor in your budget.
Okay, could that be also potentially be funded by grant? Have we looked for grant to potentially fund this position, or?
I don't think we say no to any potential grant funds. So yes, but I would like this to be a permanently funded position though, so that, because sometimes grants are limited. It might only grant, or it might only fund 2 years of position. So I would hope that we would just use the potential grant funding to supplement.
Yeah, I'm asking that because if it is gonna include trail and other things, it sounds like a great potential to maybe reach to the state and see if they could throw in a couple of dollars that could supplement the position. Just a thought.
I can certainly write a note of that and reach out to Janet Burke, head of research, to see if there's any opportunity or opening for that kind of funding.
Sure.
Counselor, that's a great idea. When the Creek Walk was first came into being, your predecessor, Counselor Doherty, and myself used to continually ask the minor administration at that time, this is a great idea, but who's going to maintain it? And they always came up with the idea, well, we're all going to take a part, which means nobody took a part. So I got to commend the commissioner and this administration on actually assigning somebody to do this. It's going to be a big deal. And the Creek Walk is used by people from all over the city, and it's a real, and now with the Loop the Lake Trail and all that, it's really a big benefit for the city's residents and the county's residents, as a matter of fact. So go on, Commissioner.
Okay, I'll ask Steve Harris. I could do my best at trying to say the forestry technician, but Steve would do it better. So I'm going to ask him to explain that position.
Okay, Steve.
You're muted. Steve, you're muted.
Hello. The role of the forestry
Steve.
technician is twofold. The first is to provide a continual presence for tree protection and enforcement, and to ensure that any developer follows the tree design guidelines that we are sharing with them during pre-development meetings. This has long been overdue. This is absolutely essential if you're going to have a tree ordinance that is followed. The idea is to just provide, to help, especially National Grid and any other developer, to practice consistent behaviors for the benefit of that infrastructure, which we spend a lot of time and money on. The other thing is, we are anticipating that we're going to have a boost of resources to plant trees. Between the federal budget and private foundation funding and state funding, there is a lot of resources available for tree planting, but we have to inspect every site that we go to. We have to visit them 3 times. So if we're planting 1,000 to 1,500 trees per year, we got to be able to go to all those sites and provide the proper oversight. We, through all the ups and downs since the downturn, have experienced a consistent and increasing trend in grant dollars. We can get them, but we're bound by our bandwidth. Also, we have received a lot of money for natural areas management. In the 20 years I've been working here, our natural areas, our forested areas, our big parks, we just have let them grow to be whatever. And that's turning out to be it's creating problems, especially in the public safety, dumping trash. And we've received $900,000 for the new section of Creek Walk. We are in the process of executing a grant for $250,000 for Schiller Park from the state. I put in for $1.3 million from Fish and Wildlife for the Creek Walk from Franklin Square to the mall. If we don't get it this round, that's dedicated funding for Onondaga Lake watershed. The likelihood that we'll be able to get funds, if not now, then in the future, is very high. They're huge projects for a place that people love, but is just being blocked. The view's being blocked by nuisance species. To do the work, we just got to have the people.
Thanks, Steve. So, Steve, you're involved with all the pre-planning meetings for all the developments and projects, correct? In downtown and everywhere else.
Correct.
Now, are you still your title? Are you still city, county arborist, or have you ever been?
For 5 years.
For 5 years we're city, county. Now you're just the city arborist, right?
That is correct.
Okay. When did the changeover happen?
2015 when it expired.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, you're certainly welcome, and you've done some great work. And I'll ask my counselors to ever ask Steve for that video that he did on that he shows the TNT meetings and neighborhood watch meetings about the foliage and urban neighborhoods and how they affect a lot of things that you won't even think of. It's really impressive. That's just one of the many things. So I appreciate your work. Is it now we go back to you, Commissioner?
Sure. The other thing I'd like to do within the grounds budget before we move on is that, we are moving forward, hopefully with the expectation and anticipation to continue the deer management program. So that is also noted in the grounds budget. And we're hoping again still that will continue to be a fully reimbursable program.
That's what's right before us next council meeting, correct?
We, right now, I think on May 11th or so is when we plan to present the results of this year's program. But yes, you guys are right now I've requested you guys to approve the agreement to request the full reimbursement of this year's program.
Okay. Councilor Driscoll, you want to say anything? You've had you've had a lot to do with this, right?
Yeah, no, just thanks to Commissioner LaFave and her team and everyone for the great work on it. It's been a it's been a great project that's long needed. We did studies for about a decade plus, where we just observed the problem getting worse and worse and did more studies to confirm that the problem was getting worse. So I'm glad that we've finally taken some steps to address a solution with it. Councilor Hook, would it be all right if I went back and asked Steve Harris a few questions?
Sure. If Steve's okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get in. You mentioned that $1.3 million grant, Steve. That would be mostly to remove that that invasive species stuff that's on the trail. Was that a correct understanding?
That would be to remove, which is not a one-step process. It requires continuous management for several years, followed by aggressive replanting of plants that we want there. We got to provide a new source of seed to bomb those areas. And rather than it being 3 or 4 exotic invasive species, we want it to be many native species.
Great. That would be amazing. What do you think the timeline would be on that project?
We'll know April 30th. And then if we're not awarded, then we can apply again for a September round.
Yeah. No, I mean more like you said, several years of removing the invasive species and planting native species. How many years do you reckon something like a project like that would take?
Well, we have been applying for 5 years. We did the current project on the new section of Creek Walk ends in 2025.
Okay. And my other question for you.
3 years.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. 3 years.
You got to manage the unwanted vegetation at least 3, if not 5 years.
Understood. And my other quick question was, I remember, we had a number of meetings about expanding the urban foliage, the tree coverage for the entire city. How is that all going? Where has that last been with trying to map out a full city coverage?
Well, we are currently reconvening all the stakeholders. They met March 25th. 70 people came together virtually, and we're meeting again today at noon. And we are brainstorming how to fulfill the goals of the master plan, the 3 primary goals, so that we know how to pursue funding. We're getting very high participation from that, and I encourage all counselors to attend. Focused on canopy goals, tree equity, private property planting, and then we'll be coming to council very soon, asking you to adopt the master plan.
Excellent. Steve, as a part of that question that it promotes, have you found there's been a change in attitude as far as developers when you sit in on those pre-development meetings regarding planting of trees and things like that?
Developers' attitudes are along a spectrum, and there's definitely a group of developers that see landscaping and trees as part of the competitive advantage for the value of their building. Mm-hmm. Like BIP is looking at building the post-standard building, and their plans for the landscape, and we're in agreement about how things should be done there.
Okay, that's good to hear. I find that wearing my other hat with the county IDA is it seems like developers are more receptive to like screening trees, sidewalks, things like that, maybe less parking space, which is encouraging, so I appreciate that. So Commissioner, you can go on if there's no more questions for Steve.
That concludes the ground section. So yeah, were there any other grounds related questions? Grounds forestry, I should say. Okay, so moving on, next our next bureau is recreation, which covers not just recreation, it covers special events, aquatics, senior centers, youth centers, adult leagues. It covers everything else that was not within admin and grounds. This one, we have no new positions per se, but we did have 2 retirements last year that were under SURA. So those have been brought from SURA back over to civil service. They're currently vacant positions. But as we get ready to open our community centers again and our senior centers, we will be filling a number of these vacancies with the number of retirements that we had last year. Again, we are funded to pre-pandemic levels again, and we are working right now to not only bring back the type of programming that the community is used to, but also new programming that we have come up with over the last year. And again, that's not just programming in our community centers, that's within our senior centers, that's within our aquatics. Investments in aquatics, we are looking to purchase, it's called a chemical controller, as well as a vacuum that will help us increase the maintenance. It'll help us be more efficient. So this chemical controller will help, the vacuum will help clean the pools and replace many hours that were necessary from our staff to do. So we're investing in the pools to hopefully stretch their lifespan just a little bit longer. We're also looking at recreational type upgrades to the pools, for more activities within the pools. We're looking at the potential of a small little indoor climbing wall at Valley Pool that people can climb and then fall off back into the pool. We're looking at a potential of diving boards or slides. Nothing is confirmed there, so I don't want to say that, but we are just looking at investments in our pools as a whole. That's about it for anything new. Again, everything else is we're going back to status quo with funding for the golf courses, the ice rinks, the community centers, the pools. But if there's any specific questions, if you guys want to make sure that there's any programming that we're including or special events, I'm sorry, I mentioned that we're going to be purchasing the kayaks right now. Council is approving us loan those boats to us, but we will be purchasing our own boats. We're purchasing the movie screen, which we've talked about as well in council. But that's it in a nutshell for anything new in recreation. So I welcome any questions for myself or any members of the team.
Commissioner, there at some point there'll be a capital plan. I mean, I can't imagine, all the pools are pretty old, I've seen, and at some point I hope there'll be some sort of planning. I don't know if your department has all the resources for it to probably replace a couple of those pools. So is that in the, I mean, that's in the hopper as far as we're looking forward into the future for something like that?
So this summer, that's a complicated and complex.
Burnett's closed, right?
It's an expensive question. So yes, our pools have long outlived their useful life. I don't know exactly in front of me, but I think they're about 50 years old or so. I don't know that we have any
I
new
think
pools.
A little older, some of them are, but
I'm just,
But I mean, that's right. I mean,
so for instance, Burnett Pool, that is just a structural upgrade that we have. It's not even really a mechanical or a full upgrade, and that is at the $500,000 point. So we do need to holistically look at our outdoor pools. I don't think we should not get rid of all of our outdoor pools, but we should assess if some are beyond saving and if we can potentially look at converting some of them to splash pads so that we don't eliminate water, on those hot July days or hot August days. It's still going to be critically important for us to be providing swim lessons and things like that. So we're never going to get away from that. But the city will have to decide if we want to continue to put $500,000, which is really kind of a Band-Aid on some of these pools.
Good. You're right. And I think that maybe there'd be an ad hoc committee to think into the future regarding that. Corey, you have anything to say on this? You're on, aren't you, Corey?
I am. I can say, yeah, that capital improvements to our parks facility is certainly, part of the discussion for the federal aid. I think anything that is a result of deferred maintenance, I think is definitely a part of the conversation that, with the hope that if we can restore so many of these things that haven't been maintained over the years, that we can do a better job maintaining them going forward so that we're not in the same position again.
Right. And obviously there's a shovel ready thing, but hopefully the infrastructure plan will come through, and I imagine something like park pools would probably be a situation where we could at least address that problem. And then of course there's the public we want to make sure the public would have input on all that too.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely.
Okay. So Commissioner,
have we made any assessment as to what it would cost, for example, you say uh, a Kirk Park pool, for example. Do we know what one pool would cost to upgrade it as opposed to patching it?
We don't have that specific dollar amount. Unfortunately, this department has really been kind of a reactive in looking at the cost of fixing. I'd love us to get to the proactive state where we look, where we look at not waiting until it's a dire situation and looking at it. But no, we have not. The hard part in our budget for the last few years has been a lot of times in order for us to do a full facility assessment, and in the case of our pools, like to hire a consultant to come in and look at all of our pools, that comes out of operating, and it's usually along the $50,000 or $100,000, and that's never been a dollar amount that's been included in our operating budget. It'd be great if that was a capital expense that we could hire a consultant, but it's been really difficult for us to find just an extra 50,000 laying around in our operating budget for a consultant to go assess all of our pools, to help us prioritize which one is, this one can do with a Band-Aid, this one needs too many Band-Aids, give up that dream. If that makes sense.
The Parks Department over the years has borne the brunt of a lot of cutbacks. When I first started the Parks Department back in the 70s, that whole second floor of the Parks Department was just filled with planning staff, landscape architects. So
Yeah, and
I mean,
don't.
it's
That's definitely not.
Do you even have anybody up there anymore? I mean, it's like there were a lot of people. There were 2 deputy commissioners. There were a lot of planners.
So, and that's why I want to thank this administration and this council for considering us slowly rebuilding some of that back up, both in planning, like you said, our planning division right now is going to be 2 people, which we're going to work with, but you guys are hopefully going to approve the addition of the creek walk person, the greenhouse crew leader, the forestry technician. It's not going to fill everything that we need in grounds, but it definitely is going to go a long way for forestry and grounds.
Absolutely. I think you have a lot of support with us, Commissioner. Could I ask Pete a question? Pete, you got about what do you got, about 17 laborers, 16 laborers for all the parks?
Somewhere in there, yeah. I think we have 30.
Yeah. Now,
I
I think I mentioned this when I was talking to you and the commissioner, and maybe Corey could chime in on this. Is there any? Will we get not only seasonal, but will there be some sort of a jobs program that will aid in maybe with the parks and maybe DPW? As a matter of fact, is for a littering type campaign where we would have not to litter, but to pick up the litter. Absolutely. Corey? I mean, with this money that we're getting, the American Rescue Plan.
I think Councilor Hogan, and not to speak for Commissioner of DPW, but I think when we had a meeting, there was that discussion that was brought up at DPW that they were hiring extra people to help with that littering issue.
Right. I'm just wondering if Parks is going to be treated the same way, because you could use some more hands, right, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I'll press the administration on that. Is there any questions from any of my Councilor Allen, Councilor Majuk, or Councilor Driscoll?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Majuk, did you have questions about our community centers now that we're on recreation budget?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because I know a couple of our community members here in my side of district that been working there for a long time, and have those directors returned back to their respected roles?
So you mean the employees that went on the leave without pay, the full-time
Right.
employees?
Right.
Okay, so the full-time. Okay,
Yeah.
so the full-time leave without pay employees, aka the furloughed employees, a number of them have been brought back voluntarily, meaning they agreed to come back and work, not necessarily within their title, but boy, they've helped us out a lot. We have not brought everybody back because much like City Hall hasn't been open, we didn't have anything to do, but we right now are hoping to bring back the rest of them, which is really only, I think, 4 or 5 of them. It's not many that remain out in the month of May. And then you may be speaking about a number of part-time employees that we had as well in our community centers. We didn't feel it was right to bring back part-time employees until our full-time employees were restored back to their full position. So once we bring back the full-time employees again within the next month, then we'll bring back those part-time employees, because we do hope, I don't know that we'll be opening the community centers for full programming right now, because it's the end of the school year, but we are going into the summer with the full intention of having a full slate as full as we can with safety protocols of programming for the community. We also are looking at opening our senior centers within the next 2 weeks as well.
And what
So we're
about
bringing a lot of staff back.
Commissioner, what about leagues, like basketball leagues and all that? How's that? Are we going to do anything along those lines or not?
So for this summer, and Jesse's on here, I can have him speak, but for this summer, I know for youth leagues, we're registering right now for softball. We're going to be registering for lacrosse. We are slowly bringing back those types of leagues we can, but as far as basketball and the programs at the community centers, I think we're going to try to, for those full-fledged, full on in this fall. But right now we're just focusing on summer. Jesse, I don't know if you want to speak on any of your planning for this summer for youth.
Yeah, the only youth leagues that we thought about, we're not going to do our varsity action league with the older team. We're going to focus more on modified and the younger folks as far as doing some summer league stuff, because they realistically did not have a season this year. It was unfortunate that those younger folks, just because of the pandemic, didn't have a season. So we're looking to expand our younger folks league a little bit and just pull back with our older teen leagues. We're going to have some team basketball, of course, but as far as league play, we'll probably just focus on the younger folks.
So when you say younger, Jesse, what do you mean? Like middle school?
11, maybe the 11 to 15-year-olds.
Okay.
That middle school age. Again, it's unfortunate they didn't have any organized basketball this year, so we're going to expand those leagues.
This will be at McChesney mostly?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner, you want to keep on going with recreation or?
So again, we're kind of just excited to get back to where we were, as well as the investments that I discussed before. That's about it for recreation. I don't want to, I hate to say that's about it, because it's really quite a bit. I mean, recreation covers us planning to open 7 out of 8 of the pools, and it's opening our community centers, and it's opening our golf courses with, enhancements there, and it's our rec league. So again, I don't want to minimize it and say that's about it, but it's a huge deal for us to get back to the pre-pandemic funding.
Will we have like recreation staff at some parks, major parks?
Yeah, so I think we're moving. We had some success last year with the mobile rec as well as the pop-up events. So we're going to try to do that. We're also, yes, we're trying to be as creative as we can, and we're also trying to get to as many corners of the city as we can. We don't want to just hit those big parks that we've always had. We're not just going to go to Kirk and Burnett and Onondaga. We're going to try to hit a lot of those even smaller pocket parks as well, at least once or twice a month, as frequently as we can. So we're trying to get out there. Good.
Excellent. Is Brittany going to be in charge of the kayaks?
It's probably, she could speak, but it's starting out right there, but it'll probably be transferred over kind of to an aquatics role, only because at Onondaga, you have lifeguards who will be on the other side of the building, and they are trained to look for somebody in danger in the water. Brittany, but Brittany special events deserve a lot of credit for the legwork so far.
I know. I'll tell you, you got a staff that's really really nimble and have reacted to every crisis that you've been through, and I couldn't be prouder of my old parks department. And I was just thinking, go on, Commissioner.
Well, this is a recorded meeting, and I've said this on a lot of different occasions, but I stand firm that I can say this confidently, there's no other city department full of employees who have become a jack of all trades and who willingly did the job of so many other people within their own department to get through this pandemic, and they did so creatively, without fuss, without complaint, and by offering their own suggestions to get us through. So I always want to give credit to the people on this call and the people who work with them.
Well, I congratulate you. And it looks like we're all in good hands here as far as the Parks Department. Are there any other questions from my colleagues on the council? Hearing
Well,
none,
well,
we'll go on. Councilor, you have something?
I have something. Yeah, yeah. Since Jesse, since you have talked about teams and stuff like that, I know Councilor Hogan is a fan of baseball and softball. When is his team going to be recognized?
Ha! You know what? Billy's father was on those teams. And by the way, I noticed that you only got 30. There's only 35 softball teams. In my heyday, we had, like, believe it or not, there were like over 500 softball teams playing in the city of Syracuse. You know, and there was probably another 200 women's teams. So it was a big sport back in those days. And Councilman Majok, I remember when Jesse was quite a basketball player too. I'll tell you, he would have taken you down under the basket. He would have tortured you, Councilman Majok.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, I know. Well, listen, thanks, Parks Department. It's been great seeing old faces and young faces, and you do a tremendous job for the city of Syracuse. And I really
One other thing
appreciate
I
you,
just want to
Commissioner.
technically make sure that I include, though, is their dog control still is in the budget. So I want to make sure that if you have any questions about that, we no longer pay the salaries that has been moved to the police department, but this department still pays for the contracts with Barks and Rec and for the cremation services. So if you have any questions on that, this is the budget hearing for that.
Who picks up the phone when somebody calls about a dog?
SPD employees, dog control.
Okay, SPG. Okay. Any questions from my colleagues? Thank you very much, and I'll call this hearing to an end.
Thank you for your support.
you.
Thanks, everyone in Parks. Appreciate y'all.